Cheers, big ears, and welcome to the Beach Travel Wine Podcast. We are your hosts, Leanne.
And I'm Lyle.
And we are not your usual travel influencers. No, we've decided we want to be travellers that travel under the influence. Okay, good joke?
Reasonable.
Well, there's plenty of more where that come from. So join us as we travel the world, one wine at a time. Hola.
Buenos dias, Leonita.
Hello, darling. So today's podcast is all about a little place, one of our favourite little places on the Costa Tropical in southern Spain called Almunecar.
See.
And it's probably one of the smaller cities that we've stayed in. And
population about 27,000.
But it's also one where we had probably so much fun.
Yes.
Yeah, and we didn't really know what to expect when we went there, but we had a great time. And we actually discovered so many interesting things that are in Almunecar, so we're going to tell you all about that today. But do you want to start with a little bit more about where it is located and a bit of the basic history before we get on to some of the fun stuff?
Yeah, as you said, it's on the Costa Tropical.
Sure.
It's quite close to Granada. Almunecar is a town on Spain's south coast. Look, it's really known for its beaches. It's got about 19 kilometres of beaches. It's got quite urbanised beaches and nudie beaches, which I wanted to go to, but you wouldn't let me. Obviously it's got the small coves and all that sort of thing with the cliffs and that sort of thing.
When was it settled and that sort of stuff? Is it? It's quite surprising to me because it's so close to some of the other places we've been, and yet it has a very different history, it seems.
Sure.
Yeah.
You want the history? Okay.
Well, let's give us the...
The Phoenicians first established a colony in Almunecar in about 800 BC. And this developed for 600 years into an important port and town with the name Sexy, Sexi. Oh. And actually a lot of the locals still call themselves Sexitanos.
Oh.
Sexitanos. Oh. So there you go.
They'd be old though, those ones. Remember that name, wouldn't they?
Yeah, probably. And with a large fishing, salting and curing industry that was a major supplier of the Greeks and Romans.
Yeah, we're going to tell you all about that because that was fascinating as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Romans, during 700 years of Roman colonial rule, the town and its industry prospered. Mm-hmm. Major evidence of the fish salting and curing industry was uncovered in the 1970s and 80s. Mm. The industry required not only large quantities of fish and sea salt, but it also a constant supply of running water to meet the demand. The Romans the Romans built in the 1st century AD 4 miles of water conduit in the valleys of the Rio Seco and the Rio Verde, including 5 significant aqueducts.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Now, the thing is, the remarkable thing about that is that 4 of those aqueducts are still used today. So 2,000 years later.
That is amazing, actually. We'll tell you, well, we don't really need to tell you much more about the salting plant, but there is a little bit more to tell about that as well.
With the decline of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century came the Visigoths. Now, the Visigoths are basic Germanic.
Yeah, Germanic, whatever it is. Yep.
Germanic.
Yeah, let's move on.
People. They really didn't change much. It was still remained fairly Romanised, the area. And then in 755, Abdul ar-Rahman I of Damascus, the founder of the Emirate of Cordoba, arrived from North Africa to establish his kingdom. The Arabs surrendered at Almunecar, and the annexation to the Kingdom of Castile was in 1498. So pretty much the same old history.
Over and over. Well,
Yeah.
okay, well, let's not dwell on that. Let's give the people some exciting stuff to go on with then, shall we? Which Almunecar has one of the things that you notice when you first come into Almunecar is this enormous blue and white mosaic octopus, and I think a lot of Spanish people have heard of the octopus of Almunecar. How big is it? Do you know?
It's about 5 metres wide and about 3 metres.
And it's basically the centre of a roundabout, and it's a bit of a pain for big vehicles, isn't it?
Yeah,
They can't go around it.
That's right.
They hate
especially the big trucks and the buses.
Yeah, but I got some lovely picture of that in our show notes at beachtravelwine.com, and it's impressive by day, but by night it's all lit up. It's it sort of glows in the dark almost with those white and blue tiles.
Yeah, and there's also those the benches.
That's right. So
which originally were just cement, and then they put white tiles, and then on top of that they put the blue hand painted tiles, and they're magnificent. There's about 37 of them.
I was going to say it's close to 40 of these mosaic benches that match the octopus, all sort of dotted along the promenades around the beach areas, and throughout that Plath, the sort of area of Almunecar. They're beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're basically the designs are regarding the sea life and also the
life in Almunecar, isn't it?
Yeah, but basically the cultural sites around Almunecar.
Yeah, so they're worth it to have a look at. Before we move on, though, how did we get to Almunecar? We got there from Almeria.
Yeah, we jumped on a bus.
Yeah,
from Almeria to Almunecar. It's about 130k.
Yeah, so what's interesting about that is it took us 3 hours to do 130k, and when we arrived, the landlord of our apartment picked us up from the bus station, and he couldn't believe that it took us that long, because it should be just over an hour's drive, but me using the apps I do, and it just said it was 3 hours, so I booked the tickets. But it was a fabulous trip, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we stopped at about 6 towns, if I can remember correctly. But basically the bus route came right along the coast.
Yeah, it sort of hugs the coastline, and it's like a nice, slow, winding road, and in and out of these little villages that we'd have never, ever seen, and they were amazing. And
it was pretty tough, really, when you think about it. All we had to do was look out the window and look at the beautiful turquoise water of the Mediterranean.
Yes, that's a lovely drive, and I think a lot of locals like that drive too. That's between Almeria and Almunecar along that coastal way. And that wasn't an expensive trip either. It was quite cheap.
About $25 Australian each.
So that was really easy. And as I said, we arrived in Almunecar bus station, which wasn't that far from our apartment, but the landlord did pick us up and drove us to the apartment, which was on the 4th floor, which had lovely views, except... What happened?
Well, I reckon the landlord picked us up purely and simply because he realised that the apartment doesn't have lifts, and we were on the top floor, and it was about 80 steps.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing was, when I started sort of trying to drag the cases up, and then the landlord grabbed the case off me, stuck it on his shoulder, and ran up the stairs. So,
come on, Lyle, what are you doing?
Yeah, I thought, you wanker, but no, anyway.
He was very helpful.
I think he was trying to prove a point.
It was a nice little apartment up on the 4th floor with a lovely balcony, and we were right on the beach area there, just away from sort of the main town, but easy walk, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't far at all.
Yeah. So you want to talk about, let's just get this elephant in the room out of the way now, the apartment and washing machine.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just do that, because I know that you're going to bring it up, so I thought I'd jump in first. So as I've said on previous podcasts, often apartments in Spain that have kitchens, people think we get a kitchen so we can cook. No, we get an apartment with a kitchen because they generally have, 95% of the time they have a washing machine in them. It's just what they do. And so this one had a washing machine, and we needed to wash, and it actually brought me to tears. I could not figure it out.
I walked into the kitchen, and here's Lan sitting on her bottom,
I was crying.
With little tears dribbling down her face because
I had
she
a
couldn't work
frustration.
out how to work the washing
And I
machine.
YouTubed it and I'm following the instructions and I'm like, I'm not a stupid person. You know, this shouldn't be that complicated. And it took me, I don't know, I'd say a good 20 minutes sitting on the kitchen floor, and then all of a sudden it started to go. And I'm like, I've nailed it.
Yeah, but you didn't know how you did it, did you?
No, I didn't, because then when I went to wash again, I had the same problem. Like it was ridiculous. Oh my gosh, I could not. Yeah, that just drove me insane. But other than that, it was a great little apartment. In a really great area. ¿Sí o no?
Perfecto.
So the reason I did book the apartment with the difficult washing machine was because it was right on the beach, and that was what we wanted to do in Almunecar. And you just walked across the road and there you were. So as Lyle mentioned before, there's quite a few beaches around, but we're just going to tell you about a couple of the ones that, in the main area of Almunecar. But as well as that, though, all the way along these beaches are beautiful promenades. Once again, I know that's a familiar thing that we talk about, but this one, it's a lovely long promenade along both those beaches. So the beach across from us, we spent a fair bit of time there, didn't we? Because we could hire beach chairs and umbrellas and we could sit there in the shade and really enjoy it.
But the week we spent in Almunecar was probably a little bit different than obviously Cordoba and Seville and all those places. You don't have the architecture and even the old towns are not as big. So really,
we had 27,000 people in total.
So we were there really to have a week's beach holiday, and as Leanne said, the beach was just across the road from the apartment. I think it was about €5 each for a lounge chair or a sun chair and the umbrella. The guys that were looking after that, they were really, really friendly.
And you could go over and hire it, and because we lived across the road, you could leave your towel there and you go home if you want to, or you go and have lunch, because there was like a little place to they were having cooking barbecue fish, weren't they? Or there's a pizza place across the road, which we're going to tell you about a bit later. So you didn't have to stay all day, but they would look after it for you.
Yeah, sure. And the beach, the beach itself, you would probably call it darker sand colour.
Pebbles.
Well,
mostly pebbles.
Yeah, a lot of it's pebble. Well, especially as you go to get into the water, it's actually a bit tricky trying to get into the water. But the water, I think, the thing that we really noticed was how clear.
Because you don't have the sand in the water, there's not the sediment. So, the water is...
It's crystal clear.
Crystal clear.
A bit chilly.
I don't remember that being chilly.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, you would. A bit of a...
Yeah, that's probably fair call.
But the beach was really busy. Not early, from about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock onwards for a couple of hours. The beach just basically... gets packed, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, we were sort of there. There was lots of kids and families, and
yes, but we'd go before them. We were always there early.
Yeah, and there was also the groups of the older guys playing cards and dominoes.
Oh my gosh, that was hilarious! And they all would arrive with their own chair, and one of them had a table, and everyone had their own umbrella. So they sort of sat up around this one table, like under their collection of umbrellas. And this one group I remember were playing cards, and they were almost sound like they were cranky, but they were actually just taking the mickey out of each other, I think, and they were having a great time. Remember that?
Oh, there was some definite crack characters amongst them. There was. I remember that particular group of guys, and there was one guy, and he was obviously the funny one.
Yeah.
And it was really, it was great to see.
And then there was a couple that next to us that had two little kids. Remember that, Jay?
Yes. And I remember I tried to say something in Spanish, and they spoke back to me in Spanish. I had absolutely no idea what they were talking about.
But they could talk really good English. Yes.
But the kids could especially speak very good English, and they
all happened to ask them what their favourite Australian animal was.
Yeah, they asked where I was from, and I told them Australian, and then they said, well, their favourite animals were koalas. Anyway.
So guess what?
Yeah,
we had the koalas.
We had some koalas, so I went back up to the climbed up the 80 stairs to get the two kids, the two koalas, and their parents were very appreciative. And so we got a bit of a giggle there. And we saw them another couple of times down the beach, and they were always nice enough to say hello and have a chat. So that was really good.
And do you remember... So we both fell asleep on the beach one day, and the beach was full of people, right?
Yeah.
And then what?
Yeah. Well, that's true. We had a bit of a siesta with our new 500 new best friends, Spanish friends.
And then we woke up.
And the beach was empty. Totally, there was not a soul on it. So everybody else had gone home to have their siesta, whereas Leanne and I had a siesta.
That was actually quite prominent, the siesta time thing in Almunecar, because I remember saying to you when we got there, I wanted to go to the supermarket because come sort of 12, 1 o'clock on a Saturday, the supermarket closes and doesn't open again until Monday. So if you want to get a couple of bottles of wine or cheese and bickies or a cup of tea, anything like that, we had to be there to go to that shop. And you don't find much else open during that siesta time.
No, they were very adamant that they would have that. And one of the things about the local beaches is, maybe it was just me, I just seemed to see that there was a lot more topless in this area, and
I think it was a lot more locals.
Yeah, well, I think it was just Spanish. And I think the other thing you notice is that none of the kids have sun shirts on, and you don't see mum and dad putting the sunscreen on the kids.
But the sun doesn't have the same harshness that ours does here.
Well, we did spend a couple of days, all day on the beach, about 8 hours reading and whatever, and we did have sunscreen on. But if we had have been in Australia and had that exposure to the sun, we would have been sunburnt. Yeah. We didn't get sunburnt at all.
We didn't. Is there any more beaches you want to talk about before we move on?
Just I suppose as you said, the promenades along the main beach there, which is really located in the centre of Almunecar. It's called the Puerto del Mar beach, and it's easily accessible. It's close to the shopping areas.
It's sort of one beach after another, and they all have their little areas of chairs and umbrellas and the water sports. There's volleyball courts. They're wide, flat beaches up a little bit further. They don't seem to have as many pebbles.
Yeah. And there's lots of water sports gear to hire.
Yeah. And then you go around the headland little area, and there's another whole row of beaches after that too, isn't there?
Yeah. And just across the road, obviously, it's just full of bars and restaurants.
Yeah. And we walked about 7 kilometres down to Herradura, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah. So that's another little beach sort of area down there. So so a great spot if you want to have a nice flat area to walk the promenade, where there's restaurants and cafes on the beach as well, isn't there? And
well, at the back, right behind us was that barbecue fish
that's what I just
restaurant.
Said.
Sorry,
So they were actually on a little boat, and they've got these. Is the barbecue, and they've got the little fish on the skewers, and they're cooking them, which. They do that in quite a lot of the restaurants there in Almunecar, don't they?
Yeah, it's really famous in Malaga.
Yeah, in that area. Almunecar has quite a small old town, obviously because it's only a smaller place, but the old town's sort of built on a hill, isn't it? And it's one of those old towns that I love that are pedestrian only. And with the windy streets and the pretty little balconies with the flowers and that sort of thing. But this old town has a couple of unique things, and we're going to talk about those. But the first thing sort of about the old town, I guess, is the San Miguel Castle. Now, before you tell us a bit about that, I remember this day I asked this lovely old gentleman, which way was to the San Miguel Castle. And
that's right.
Yeah. And this is actually on Instagram in the Almunecar story highlights. It's really funny because we're walking, it's quite steep, and we're walking up this hill, and we get up there, and I think I say something like, see that? That's a door to the castle, and it's not open. So, he sent us up there even though he knew it was closed, the old bugger. But we did go back.
Yeah, that was our first attempt, yeah.
Yeah, so we did, it's quite funny. Go and have a look at that. But, so when we did go back, I think we were back the next day, we did go inside the San Miguel Castle, and Yeah, tell us a bit about that, honey, please.
Well, the entry is...
It's not much.
No. It's €2 €35 for an adult and €1.60 for a child. Most of the current castle structure dates from the Arab era of the 8th century through to the 15th century. Towards the end of the reign of King Fernando, the Catholic king, in the 16th century, a trench was dug around the castle, a drawbridge was installed, and the impressive front entrances with its 4 imposing circular turrets were installed.
And that's where we were knocking on the door. We keep a knocking, but you can't come in.
Okay, and look...
And because it's up high, the views from up there are amazing.
Spectacular,
And you can actually see across to that... there's a statue of Christ on the hill with a cross, isn't there?
Is it St. Christopher? Christabel?
Correct. Yeah, sorry. You're right. St. Christopher, you're right. And that's like another little high point that you can walk up to. But yeah, it's great view from up there. And you do go across that little bridge where they dug that moat. Yeah.
So there's something special about this particular castle. There's a pavilion housing a museum of Almunecar's history. In the grounds of the castle, you can read about the castle's progression through years and how each culture basically lived here. The Phoenicians, the Romans, the Moorish and the Christians. You can also watch videos, reenactments of what times were like during these periods.
They did a really good job of it, it's not in... There's a lot of it that's, it's not in perfect condition. But, there's parts of it that are and has all that sort of, as you said, all that information. So
now, included in your price...
Yes.
Which
I'm priceless.
Yes, you are priceless. But included in the €2.35 entry, you get to go to the Caves of the 7 Palaces, which is the Cueva de los Siete Palacios. How's that? Was that good?
Siete, sí.
You see?
Yeah.
Look, I loved it.
Yeah. It was interesting because when we finished at the San Miguel Castle, we went to the Caves of the 7 Palaces, and it looked a bit dingy to go into because it's underground, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you sort of go in underground and they've got lots of displays even down in the ground that you're walking across these metal sort of bridges, and you're actually quite high, and they've got lots of relics, and it's quite fascinating, isn't it, in there?
Yeah, look, it's got and it's really well labelled, I remember.
Yeah, lots of really good information in Spanish and English.
Yeah, so it's Almunecar's Archaeological Museum.
Yes.
From local digs, including the oldest writing discovered anywhere on the Iberian Peninsula.
Yeah.
The museum consists of 7 stone-built alcoves linked by a central vaulted passage. So that's what you were saying when you're looking down.
Yeah. Yes.
The alcoves and the vaults were created by the 1st century Roman rulers of Almunecar.
So the 1st century.
Yeah, so that's when it goes back to.
Old,
so
we didn't know anything about that, did we, when we went to Almunecar? And
what they say is that having run out of building space on the crowded coastal hill occupied by the town, Roman administrators had the cave constructed to support a broad platform projecting off the hillside, increasing usable space. It is supposed that the platform provided the foundation for a construction of a grand building, possibly a temple, palace or forum. So
they were pretty smart then, weren't they?
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was really good.
It was better than the San Miguel Castle, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
One thing we didn't mention is out just outside the San Miguel Castle is the Cathedral of Almunecar, which isn't one of the most impressive cathedrals, but it's worth a little visit inside as well.
It had bells. I remember it had bells.
It did. It was bells. That's unusual in Spain to have bells ringing. But once again, if you go to Instagram and you go across to Almunecar on the story highlights, you'll see us walking around the these places that we're talking about. I've got little videos of those. And on our website at beachtravelwine.com, if you go to the show notes on Almunecar, I've got photos of all of these places we're talking about as well. So it's worth going to have a have a look at those. Lyle, while we're talking history, because I know that you love that, can we talk a little bit more about the salting factory? Because you mentioned the aqueducts that were there, but this salt factory forms sort of part of this area down underneath, not underneath, but below,
just
below the castle.
Yeah.
And
the San Miguel Castle.
Correct. And you come across it, you just walk around the promenade and you see the castle up on the hill, and then you just see what looks like this massive Roman ruin. And you start to read the information, you find out that this area was only discovered in the 1970s, wasn't it? Like in an archaeological dig, as you said.
Sure.
And it's all the walls and the washing dishes and all the stuff that they used to salt fish, because that was one of the big industries.
Sure. It's the Factoria de Salazón.
So let's just say it's a salting factory.
Okay, so the factory began its activity towards the end of the 5th century BC.
Right.
With its heyday in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. The central sector forms the main body of the factory.
And you can see all
Here
that.
are the salting sinks that the fish steaks were put into, alternating them with the layers of salt. After 21 days, the now salted fish was put into large containers for transport and sail around the Mediterranean, particularly in the city of Carthage, which is Tunisia, Rome and Corinth, which is in Greece.
Yeah, that's amazing. And
attached to the south wall, we can see a canal that brought fresh water from an aqueduct.
Aqueduct,
I can't even say that.
Aqueduct. So
it was used for washing the fish before salting them.
Okay. And it's
As you said,
it's quite a big area. What did I say?
Well, you said to me this morning, that was weird. Why would they wash the fish before they salt them?
Yeah, wash the salt water off. But anyway, it's obviously maybe that, anyway, who knows? They obviously knew what they were doing. They did it for centuries. But this is there's a photo you can sort of see from the outside looking back over this whole sort of area of that salting factory, in the website, beachtravelwine.com. Now, also in this area, down below the San Miguel Castle, is some Botanic Gardens.
Yes.
Now, this is like one of the things that we love about travelling. You just think you're going to this little beach town with 27,000 people and you're just going to hang out at the beach and have a few restaurants, and then you walk around the corner and you come across all this history and this salting factory. And then there's this, it's not big, but this beautiful small Botanic Gardens. And they had a cafe in there, and we'd go there and get a coffee and sit under the big shady trees. And there's sculptures and water features and trees from how many countries? Like they did say something like that.
Oh, there's about 200 different
varieties or something.
Varieties of trees, all subtropical.
Yeah.
But do you remember the date? Because everything's sort of really close.
Yeah, sure.
They're almost on top of each other.
Well, you can sit at that cafe in the Botanic Gardens and see the salting factory.
Yeah. Well, do you remember the old guy playing the guitar?
I do. I've got a photo of him sitting there in front of those.
So this guy would have been, I reckon, no exaggeration, probably 80.
Yeah, probably.
And he had his little fedora hat on, and he was dressed to the nines. And here he is, sitting by himself, playing acoustic Spanish guitar.
Yeah.
And he was brilliant.
He was sitting on this little bridge that connected the Botanic Gardens that went up over the salting factory. So he's sort of in that middle part. And he actually had like one of those little, province houses.
Sure.
And he made guitars. Do you remember that?
Oh, that's right.
So he was sitting there playing his guitar. So as part of the Botanic Gardens, they have these little, they call them province houses, but so a lot of areas of Spain are represented there.
Yeah.
And each one, I guess it's like a little artisan shop, and they have goods from handmade goods and artwork from the province of Malaga, the province of Seville, and there's
and they do have some souvenirs there as well. So
I guess they all are. And then this guy obviously had his guitar shop.
we did the right thing. We went up and asked him whether we could take his photo and take a video, and he was more than happy. He gave us a big smile, and
check out his photo and the videos on that as well. So
the statues there, I'm not sure whether you're aware or not. What happened?
The Botanic Gardens,
in about 2000.
They're marble, right?
Yeah, they're marble, and the marble comes from Almeria. Now they
were gifts.
They are gifts, and because back in 2005, the mayor of Almunecar declared that they would take refugees from war-torn Syria.
Yes.
So all those statues were made sculptures were made by Syrians and donated to the park.
Yeah, and they're amazing.
Yeah, it's really good, really, really good, and it's a nice story.
Yeah, it is a nice story, and it's just such a great area that encompasses gardens and statues and water features and history and those little province houses and stuff. Yeah, it was really beautiful, right down below San.
Yeah, it was. I reckon it was probably one of my favourite parts.
Yeah, it was a really nice surprise to come across that in Almunecar. So now we're going to tell you all about one of Lyle's other favourite topics is food and wine.
Absolutely.
And we just remember we had quite a few great experiences with our food and wine in Almunecar, starting on the day we arrived.
Yep. We sure did. The day we arrived, Lamb was determined that we were going to have lunch, because when we arrived in Almeria, which was the town before, we arrived, I think it was about 2 o'clock. By the time we got it was 3 o'clock, and it was siesta time. So we missed out on, the supermarket, getting some supplies, but we also missed out on lunch, and we were starving. So Lamb was determined, as soon as we got to Almunecar, dropped the gear off, and off we went. Anyway, so we found a lunch spot.
Just up the road from where we were staying.
Yeah, and we had a beautiful salmon, smoked salmon.
Yeah, that was
nice. And avocado salad. It was beautiful. Yeah. But what scared me a little bit was when the waiter came past. Lan was ordering, and I didn't realise, but she'd ordered, although there was the hand movement of the size of the glass from the waiter.
Cerveza
Grande. It is a bucket of beer. Anyway, so Leanne's gone, see. And I couldn't believe it. I'm thinking, hang on, we don't normally have that size beers. But
it was hot. It was
hot. And the beer was cold.
Yeah.
But what surprised me was that when we finished those, the waiter basically gave Leanne the look, as to say, do you want to go again? And we had another 2 of these buckets of beer. And
Button up, princess.
Anyway, so
can you believe this? He's whinging because I ordered him, big cold beers.
Yeah, but it was about 100 degrees in the shade.
And so we went home for a siesta.
We had a couple of those grandes, and then we bought a bottle of wine. So, we were quite primed by the time we left the restaurant, and that was when we fell asleep on the beach. With all our new Spanish friends.
Well, they obviously thought, who are these Aussie drunks, and they left.
Anyway, the food was brilliant.
I think you actually take poetic license on some of those stories and make us...
I could say more, but I won't.
Okay. Can we talk food then?
Sure. Yeah, anyway, the food was great. The smoked salmon and avocado salad was brilliant. There was a restaurant right next to the apartment we were staying in, and...
that was attached to, there was some other accommodation, I think, and that was attached to that. We had breakfast there a couple of days.
Yes, we did.
They made the most beautiful pizzas, and there's actually a little video on that on the highlight stories that says, does pineapple belong on a pizza? Oh, hello, prawny and avocado, and it was this pizza that was just full of all this tropical stuff, and it was just
prawn,
delicious.
avocado, and pineapple.
Yeah,
for some reason,
and salmon, I think too.
Yeah, for some reason, prawns don't seem to be or seem to be a lot less expensive in Spain than Australia.
Good, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, look, yeah.
Like everything
and
else.
everything else is cheap as well.
Yeah.
But prawns in particular seem to be very, very cheap in Spain.
So another place that another food that we had in Spain, in Almunecar, that everyone sort of told us about, and we're just like, okay, we got to check this out, is churros con chocolate, which is churros with chocolate, which is like these long sort of deep fried donut sticks, they're coated in that cinnamon sugar, and you get a cup of hot chocolate that you dip them into. Now, everybody else we talked to loves them. I couldn't even bring myself to have it. You did. You're not a fan. No, but you did take one for the team, so thank you.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was because I had a hangover that particular morning or it just tasted terrible. But anyway, I did take a couple of bites and I thought, nah, this is not for me, and have never tried another one.
Okay, but let's talk some upmarket food then. Let's go to another night. We went for a walk in the other direction, and we came across a restaurant called Arbol Blanco, which means white tree. And this just sort of sits on a little sort of headland area past that water park. There's a bit of a theme water park.
Yeah, there is. Yep. The Parque Aquatic.
Yes, so the aquatic park.
And that's it was about a 3K walk to the town next to Almunecar. I think it's still part of Almunecar, but it's the Velia Tarame, 3K, as I said. And the restaurant was right on the water. It was absolutely beautiful. I'll never forget. It was just right on the water. It was
I ordered a duck dish. This is what I remember about it.
And you did. It was on like a sizzle plate.
Yeah, they brought it out cooked, but then they gave me a plate so I could keep it warm or cook it a little bit more. And it had a port and mustard sauce. Wow,
it was.
Yeah, so that's a
taste.
Amazing.
Sensational. It was beautiful.
I did share.
Give me a little bit, and I couldn't believe how nice it was.
And that was it. Yeah, so that's the Arbol Blanco. That was a really lovely restaurant, wasn't it? And then another night we decided we'd go the other way, and it must have been Friday night because there were markets on, weren't they?
The Friday flea market.
Friday flea markets, and they have everything in those markets, don't they? But on the way, remember, we stopped. There was a beach bar, like right on the beach, and this is when Lyle had his George Clooney look going on. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think
some photos of that.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. But yeah, I did. I hadn't had a shave for a couple of days, and
it was more than that. It was quite a while.
It was probably a week.
Yeah,
probably time since the time we got to Almunecar. But it was it was right. This particular bar.
It was quite trendy, like it had the macrame and it was very modern and very wistful, had like the white flowing curtains and you almost had to sit on beanbags on the ground, which for us two oldies, that's, getting down's okay, but we look like,
But it was
getting up's a bit different.
I remember we had mojitos.
Yeah.
They were beautiful, and the background music was...
Yeah, it was great.
They had fantastic speakers.
And the water was really still, and, that was lovely. And then after that, we kept walking, and we went around the corner past past the bottom of San Miguel Castle, and then there's a whole strip of restaurants. There's all these old fishing boats up on the beach, I don't even know if they use them anymore, but they're like really nice decoration. And there's sort of, I don't know, maybe, 3, 4, 5 restaurants, one after the other, right on the sand, And the one we went to was called Restaurant Calabre, and we sat out on the sand under a little umbrella, and, they got the little lanterns, and it was very, very romantic and beautiful. But the thing that I remember most about that restaurant, do you know what I'm going to say? No?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, is the sunset.
Yep, it was fabulous. The place we're talking about is about 7.5 km from where we were staying. So it was a nice walk. It was a beautiful night. It's called La Herradura.
Okay.
and it was beautiful. But yeah, I like that sunset. And I remember we had that night. We had a fisherman's basket.
Yeah.
We had a bit of a spoil. We had a bottle of wine, and there was again a Spanish guitar player.
Yeah.
And then as the sun sets, it was deep red.
Yeah, it was. Go and have a look at the photos because it's one of the most beautiful sunsets I've ever seen, and I think I've got a video of that on Instagram stories, but I've got a couple of photos of it, as it was sort of happening, and we were just absolutely blown away by that. And I've actually had a look around Instagram at other people's photos of Almunecar, and there are so many of sunsets. It must just be really the perfect spot for it, because there's so it's worth going to have a look at that. That was beautiful, wasn't it?
It was
really nice
special.
Night.
Yeah. So once we'd had dinner and we'd seen the sunset, we decided we were going to walk back home. And as we walked back home, and we noticed this before we walked through it obviously on the way, but there's like a bar and nightclub area.
So what it is they've got like a disco or DJ in the middle.
Yeah.
And there'd be 8, 10 different like little bar areas around.
Yeah, nightclubs,
Yeah, and some of them are outdoors, some of them, you can go off, they're inside.
Yeah.
But they're all sort of there, and there wasn't in the daytime there was a shitload of people there.
Yeah.
But we must have been too early.
Yeah, on the way back.
There's a few people, but so we were tired. We'd had a long day, but we started walking through here, and we saw a sign that said, 2 mojitos, €8 or something ridiculous. So I'm just like, oh, fine, let's do it, didn't we? And
we were just primed enough to still want to kick on. Leanne's punching me here.
I am. He's like, makes us sound like drunk. Stop it. You might be. I wasn't. I was having a great night.
Oh, okay. Keep going with the story.
I will. But, I've got family listening to this. It's a family show.
You don't think they know?
Well, okay, here's a language warning.
Are you easily led? Is that what it is?
Yes, darling. Yes. But I think you anyway, I'm not going to argue with you on a podcast. Just stop talking about me being drunk. It's not.
I didn't say you. I said.
You didn't. Anyway, back to the story at hand. We walked into, as I said in my stories, oh my God, we've just walked into a fucking karaoke bar. And for those Australians out there listening, Brian Cadd, the Spanish Brian Cadd, was sitting up at the bar.
Yeah.
And when you buy a drink, they give you a ticket to sing karaoke. And the barman was determined that we were going to have our turn because,
Sure.
There was all these Spanish people sitting in the booths, and there were people singing, but they weren't showing themselves. They're just sitting in their own little booths, right? And they're
Sure.
singing these, amazing Spanish, heartfelt, mournful ballads, and makes you want to go home and stab yourself in the eye.
Okay. Well, what's the other one you say?
No, I don't say that. And we, so I was determined that I was going to liven the place up. So, anyway, there is a video of me doing my thing, got the crowd going. Lyle's singing, he's clapping.
I was singing with
Brian Cadd.
Yeah, with the Spanish Brian Cadd. We're having a chat. I was speaking English, he was speaking Spanish, but we seemed to get on.
Yeah.
And we had a ball. But yeah, so what did you sing?
I sang old time rock and roll. Yeah.
Yes, and you...
I nailed it. Even if I do say so myself.
And the whole crowd were singing along and clapping, and we had a marvellous time.
And I haven't sung karaoke since.
Yeah, in fact, I was that impressed as we walked
I was
out.
hoping to do it, actually, before you do your little, dancing story. I was hoping to do karaoke in Japan, and we had some people with us that weren't that keen on going to a karaoke bar. But that's a shame. We'll go back and do that. I reckon I'd nail it there too. But you're right.
Self-praise is no recommendation.
I think I'm pretty good. Anyway, so to finish off our little night out with the beautiful food and the sunset and the karaoke and the mojitos on the beach and, romance and fun, Lyle decides he's just going to stand in the middle of the path and do a little salsa dance, didn't you?
I did.
And there's evidence of that too. on our stories. So
I'd had such a good night. And obviously we hadn't had too much to drink. Of course not. Por supuesto. But yeah, it was. We'd had a great night, and I think with Almunecar, look, it's not the Cordobas or the Sevilles or whatever, but we had a really, really nice holiday.
Yeah, it's great fun. Yeah. Great fun place to be. So to finish off our podcast, once again, we're faced with the $64,000 question: is Lyle? Yes, Leanne.
Yes, Leanne.
Thank you. Where was your favourite place to have a glass of wine in Almunecar?
I have two places. One, though, wasn't...
No, one.
One?
Mm.
Okay, I would say looking at the sunset in La Herradura.
At the restaurant Calabre. Yeah.
That's the one.
Okay, that's... and mine, okay, that would have been mine, but I think I'm going to go back to our first lunch where I made you, I'm really sorry that I made you do that, but I appreciate you taking one for the team and joining in, having that nice cerveza grande, sitting there with that beautiful smoked salmon and just, feeling the vibe of Almunecar for the first time. It just was...
And just looking across the road at the beach.
Yeah, it just felt really good. All right, give me a second then. Come on.
Well, it actually wasn't it wasn't wine, so that's why.
Oh, the mojito.
The mojitos at the karaoke bar.
Yeah, that
was one of the best nights I've ever had.
That's called La Cueva Karaoke, so the cave, karaoke cave.
Yeah, it was. We just had the best day.
Yeah, we did. That was fun. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed hearing all about the history and the art and the gardens and all the actual unique stuff that Almunecar has, doesn't it? In such a small area, and it's certainly, you probably don't have to have a week like we did, but it's certainly worth a few days, a couple of nights exploring, and it's not that far from Malaga. And one of the things I was quite surprised about is it's only 50 k's from Granada, so. You could certainly be in Granada and go down there for a couple of days or vice versa. That it's certainly a great spot to do that. Sí o no?
Sí.
All right. Well, hasta luego, mis amigos.
Sí, adiós, amigos.